You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in cold, crisp Northport, Florida. If you're out on the roads today, the roads are nice. The easy traffic is easy. Just be safe. I'm trying to convince everyone to slow down. It's better to spend time with family and friends than it is to spend time on your back in the hospital with no one that you know. So be safe out there, and think of it this way: save a life. Just don't drive stupid and kill somebody. That's the easiest way not to end up in jail and have a great remainder of the week, but also keep you upright and mobile and having a good time. So just remember that as we're traveling throughout our city and others. Be safe and be aware of everything around you. There are motorcyclists still out on the roads. I did hang out at Harley Davidson, and they're bundled and they're riding. So let's pay attention to motorcyclists too. I've got a very, very special guest in the house today, Mr. Billy from Public Works. How you doing, Billy?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on again. How you doing?
You know, I'm doing really good. So we're gonna start out with a couple oh my gosh moments. My backstage helper, Marie LaBrosse, she is fantastic, and she's given me the keys to the castle, so to speak. So right. I get to do the tech side and the show side and the radio show side today, and I am not nearly as proficient as she is. So I'm going to try to pull some stuff up. I'm not going to promise anyone anything. So if you're listening on the radio, you're in great shape because you're not seeing anything. But if you're looking on Facebook, Real Talk 97.5 FM or KDWRadio.com, I'm going to try to pull some things up. But if not, you can always check things out exactly where we're going to instruct you to go. What would you like to talk about first? Because I know there's a big issue that happened last week, and I still believe it's out there. But where would you like to start first? I'll leave it in your hands, Bill.
Well, I will just say there's not a lot that we can say. We're continuing to have network issues. Came up about maybe a week and a half ago. They are working diligently to get things back to where we need them to be. In the meantime, you know, it's obviously something where there's a lot of technology involved, and it affects a lot of processes. So in the meantime, in lieu of our normal contact numbers and things like that, our procedures, we do have a variety of ways to contact our different departments, utilities, neighborhood services, Public Works. If you go to cityofnorthport.com/alerts, we do have a variety of ways to contact the different departments there. For Public Works, we have actually 3 temporary lines in place. We did have one on the scroll, but we got 941-374-6038, 941-374-7176, and 941-400-5518. And those are the 3 lines that go to our 3 customer service reps. In the event that you're not able to get through to them, we're not able to take voicemails on those lines, but if you do try to call and you're not able to get through and you get frustrated, we do have, for bulk pickups, we have the forms on the website under the solid waste pages. And we do also have the NorthPort app, which if you have issues, illegal dumping issues with your swale, we did finally get some rain again last week, and a little tiny bit over the weekend. Things like that, you can, use the NorthPort app. You can also email pwcustservice, C-U-S-T service at cityofnorthport.com. And, we are working diligently to get through those requests as quick as we can, given the circumstances.
And, I know that you guys are really good at trying to monitor the Facebook side of things and keep things really up to date and people are on alert. I did notice a couple things, though, and I'm going to point it out because I think citizens also need to play a part in keeping themselves aware of what's going on, even if they're going to continue to make comments. You might want to read through the comments, because one thing that I noticed was that there were multiple answers from city into the Facebook streams themselves, into the message streams. And if you really pay attention and you just start reading down through, you don't have to read every comment, but if you scroll down long enough to see where the city is trying to get information out, because with all the technology that we have today, when it goes down, I mean, when it falls on its face and it's down, I read one quote that the lady had an appointment and she was upset because she had to go to her appointment and they couldn't do anything. And she wondered why they couldn't call. Well, if the system is down, you can't get a phone number to pick up the information and call you. So
right.
We also have to be, as citizens, aware of the graciousness that we might have during a situation that is totally 100% out of the control of the city workers.
Sure.
This was not a situation where city workers said, I'm just not going to answer the phone for 3 days.
Right.
They systems go down, things happen. I'm going to ask you this, because I think more importantly is when systems go down like that and things happen, what does happen inside the walls? What did you guys go through when you knew you had things you had to accomplish, but you also knew you couldn't make the phone calls out, you couldn't get things organized? How did you guys deal with that?
I mean, the first real step in the process was establishing ways that we could, allow our customers, our residents to reach us. That's the biggest thing, is when the main phone line goes down. It's understandable. People aren't going to be thrilled that they can't call and talk to somebody. And I will say, some of our residents have been pretty gracious with us, as far as understanding. We had a lot of people that had scheduled bulk pickups before our networking issues, and the big problem for us is that we were no longer able to see these bulk pickup requests that had been set up, and so people had them, let's say, scheduled for that Friday, immediately after our network issues arose, and we couldn't see it. And so there's a certain level of, they're trying their best to drive around all the streets in the neighborhoods and pick up. Pretty much, Frank said, let's just drive all the streets and just pick up everything in sight. Everything we spot, everything we see. And to a degree, that's what they're doing. But we have had people who had scheduled bulk pickups and we miss them. And I try to let people know, listen, it's not something we're doing intentionally. This has caused an issue for all of us, and we're getting you rescheduled. We've had to set up a backup plan to make sure we get these things on the list. And I will say, people have been fairly gracious, all things considered. Nobody wants a pile of junk sitting in their front yard for weeks on end, and people have been patient with us, and we have, we're doing our best to kind of get around and get things up as quickly as we can.
Well, I think that citizens overall, they're very blessed, and in the fact that we have really a really core group of people at Public Works working really hard. One, to keep everything on schedule, keep everything moving forward, save money, save costs. But when it comes down to a crisis situation, you guys have learned to adapt pretty quickly on trying to get things. And I don't say moving, because they're already moving, but keeping them moving through a situation is one of the keys to success, because you have to adapt to whatever you're confronted with. And I think with everything we've been through in the last couple of years, I think we're more prepared today for a quick change in our day than we were pre-pandemic. And you guys have the staff that And you know, we've met Frank, we've met a lot of people at Public Works, but the situations that you guys are confronted with, you almost have to be able to adjust on the dime and make some adjustments and make things happen. People being out sick, different things like that. You guys are filling holes, redoing routes. Those are things that make Public Works look good that people never get to talk about.
Right.
And you know, it's funny if you drive our city, and you know, I drive a lot of cities being a realtor, and you drive our cities and you drive out of the state and look at some cities. You have to come back home and just love the fact that, you know, we're out picking up trash, we're out cleaning things up, our roadways are trimmed up, they're clean. The amount of work and time that goes into that add on to the fact that the systems go down. It doesn't mean that people aren't working. And I saw that quote. I'm like, send them home since they're not working. It doesn't mean they're not working. It just means they have to adapt their job. And I think that people who are the naysayers of the world, the people that think everything stops when Chicken Little is crossing the road, you guys are actually changing things and changing momentum. When it starts to halt, you redirect and you get things going. And I think that's what we've learned through this pandemic is that, and I think you guys were doing that before that, but I think as a city, we need to step back before we start tapping those keys. I've been saying this for weeks now. Before you start tapping the keys, educate yourself, read about even in the same post, just read above to see if the city even commented. And then if they did comment, copy and paste it. Right. Because that's how the information spreads. It's when you keep getting it out. The city worker can't sit there all day long and keep going when people are just posting one complaint after the next when they've already responded. So if you can copy and paste something, help the city get the word out, even if it's a copy and paste it in your chain of responses. Information flows as long as we're all promoting it together. And I think that's a big thing to talk about because we're limited anyway in the city of NorthPort on how we get our information. When the systems go down, how much of the communication, I'm asking you this because I know it's a ton, how much of the communication to others goes down when the complete system at City Hall goes down?
Well, I will say, you know, there's a lot of daily processes that you get used to. You know, you have work orders and then you pick up your desk phone and call somebody. You just fire off an email without even giving it a second thought. And, you know, it's a very quick process. Pick up the cell phone if you know, you've got your contacts in your cell phone, things like that. And when something like this crops up, it kind of adds a couple steps to the process. You know, there's more obviously in-person communication that has to happen and you know, making sure we're all on the same page and thankfully most of the ways that we put forth things like our work orders and stuff like that, we were able to find alternatives for, and on some levels it means way more communication than we were used to, and in other areas it's just kind of it's the same level, but we're redirecting. You know, so there are certain processes you get used to. You come in, you check your email in the morning, you know, you're going through everything. And then when that's not possible, you adapt and overcome. And if it takes 6 more steps to do the same process, then, you know, you work with it until we don't have to have that process in place.
Well, and are systems now today up and running, or are they still down?
They are doing their their best to get them up in order of importance, piece by piece. But again, the network thing that we're dealing with is not just let's just go reset the router and turn it off, turn it back on, and hey, everything's good. So they're working on it. They're working day and night. I will say I don't know that our IT department has really had a good night's sleep for a few weeks now,
right?
As they're working to get the network issues resolved. But there are certain things that weren't as network reliant that they're trying to kind of give us alternatives to, and other things that we just don't have access to at the moment.
Well, we had a special award given out at the Chamber of Commerce, and Peter Bradlotta was inducted to the Hall of Fame because he was a promoter of the city for so many years, and it was a great ceremony for him. It was very impressive. I got to speak at the event. I was very honored to speak in his behalf because I know how much he cares about the city. Whether he is on your thought process on the good side or the bad side, he does make people talk about the city, good, bad, or in between. And I told him that after we were done. I said, I don't know one person who's had the impact of being able to make somebody talk about the city, whether you agree with his topic or not. They're still talking about the city. And I think getting people to engage in the city at any level, you got to have conversation, and we got to get more people talking about the city. I like the fact that people were online and they were upset that you guys weren't there. I wanted to point out, though, that work doesn't stop. The effort to be 100% in for the city doesn't stop. Things don't stop because City Hall has a glitch. It's just the processes.
Exactly.
Whether you're trying to collect trash, pay your water bill, or pick up permits, I got to tell you, I don't know what city you can go to right now other than really, really small city somewhere in the United States that has no computer system anymore. But if you knock out their computer systems in any city and their phone lines, I don't know what city is going to continue to work forward and collect permits and keep appointments at DMV if all those communication networks are down. And while we want to hold our city to another standard, and I brought Peter Bradlotta into it for a reason, because he's always pushing for a higher standard. One of the things I really learned to appreciate was the fact that that was my first time listening to our city manager, Jerome Fletcher. It was my first time meeting his wife. Wonderful, wonderful people. Very energetic, very positive, very forward thinking. Gave the city address at the event, and he highlighted a lot of the departments within the city, and he talked about public works, and my ears always perk up when I have people on the show that I've been talking to for a couple of years, because I'm so used to getting information. But to hear Mr. Fletcher talk about all the departments, talk about public works, talk about recycling, talk about where we are, it's amazing to me. People in that room, they listened. You got 100+ people in the room, and you're sitting there, and that has something to do with the growth of the city, the growth of the Chamber of Commerce. They were doing a great job at the chamber. Everything is kind of, and the chamber, and I bring this in not to not talk about public works, but to show the combination of relationships that are out there within our city. The chamber talks about public works. They talk about different parts of our community. Mr. Fletcher, I was going to call him Jerome. I met him. So he is definitely going to be a guest on the show. I'm excited to have him here. But to hear him talk about the different departments, I know the enthusiasm for him is high, and I know that he's going to go another level, which we're all hoping for anyway. You've met with him or had conversations with him, I'm sure by now.
Yes.
What's your take on what he thinks of your side of the fence, which is public works? What do you think his take is on where you guys are at and where you guys are going?
In our conversations with him, like you said, Mr. Fletcher, he's an absolute gentleman. He is, again, a very forward thinker. He's got eyes on, not just change for the sake of change, but, what can we do to make things better? Seems to have a grasp on what it is that Public Works does for the city, and, how ways we can continue to improve, ways we can move things forward for the Public Works Department, and, looking for any ways that we can necessarily, I don't want to say make things easier, but maybe streamline, certain aspects of the department. And again, he's got a pretty good grasp of the good the department does for the city, and he just wants to see us continue to succeed at that.
Well, and anytime that you have new leadership come in, they analyze, they break things down, they look at things, and I'm positive, and I don't know, but I'm positive he's coming from a place who doesn't have our recycling program. Sure. Because there aren't too many recycling programs, and that's why I feel very confident in saying that. There are not too many recycling programs like ours. In fact, we're really looked at inside the state and outside the state as the platform of what to do. And right. And I had this conversation last week, and somebody said, well, what is the value? Why are we breaking down red or blue lid and brown lids? And I went, because I've talked to you enough, and Frank has been on to explain it all. It's not just what we do with recycling. It's how we do recycling to save the community money. In the end, I see it. You wave that. You're mad. Background waving lights around and doing things, but to be able to interview you guys and have you on the show and learn, man, it's so easy to defend what we do. And right. and when you start talking about the community as a whole, and you link these things together, and you talk about how it's really revolutionary, okay? It's really different than up and down the coast on what we do. I actually got into the conversation with waste management, okay? Not with them directly, but that the person was like, yeah, but we have waste management. And I said, yeah, but you don't do what we do. And your dump fee is going to go up. And how are you going to correct that other than pay the bill? Right. I said, we've got a team of people that are working that differently. I know we talk about that a lot. I know we discuss that a lot, but the advantages to being in NorthPort and having your trash picked up in NorthPort compared to like a waste management community where they don't have really the control that we kind of have on some right. things. Can you explain the difference and where that possibly could go in the future, and how we're set up to kind of help tapping down that cost in the future?
So, the biggest part of it is, as far as recycling goes, when you are doing single stream, like most of the municipalities around us are doing single stream, is it raises the percentage of contamination. And so we have obviously the dual stream. So we've got cardboard paper on 1 week and the commingle on the other week, and being able to take it to our recycling center and unload it all there and make sure that we're going through and we're getting any kind of contamination that we can obviously see on the surface, sort it out, put it in a trailer, send it to our recycling facility, that enables us to reduce the contamination percentage. And the lower contamination percentage we have, the larger kickback we get from the secondary market. And if you are not doing that, if you don't have that process in place, you're dumping everything all in one can, your contamination is going to just naturally be higher. And so you're getting less of a kickback off that. You could bring in however many more tons of recycling you want, but if you are not getting that kickback, I mean, you're just paying more, essentially. And so, you know, we have that natural advantage. Another thing that we have coming, hopefully in the next few years, is the solid waste transfer station that the commission finally gave Frank the go-ahead to pursue. And what that's going to do is that's going to enable us to keep all of our trucks inside city limits. And so, you know, that was one of the big things that Frank talked about with the recycling, is the ability to keep the recycling trucks in town. And we don't have all those trucks making that trip to the landfill or to the recycling facility, you know, there and back several times a day. That's a lot of fuel. There's a lot of wasted time when you're talking about our garbage trucks going up there and having to wait in line for their turn.
Yep.
So we are hopeful that in the next few years, we're going to be able to get the transfer station in place. It'll keep all of our trucks in town, our garbage trucks, our recycling trucks, our bulk waste trucks, our yard waste trucks, everything will be kept in town. And then just another thing that's going to help is our current bulk pickup system, where we have on any given day, we could have as many as 100 plus bulk pickups on the schedule. And what's unfortunate with that is obviously not every house's material is going to be the same. So one house might have, you know, 12 bags of just garbage, 12 garbage bags just full of stuff because they were spring cleaning, you know, they're doing whatever. Maybe they had a big party, 12 garbage bags worth. Maybe it was a huge party. But then the next house might have 3 couches out front, and these materials are going to compress obviously differently. So the trucks fill up differently. That bulk truck has to go to the landfill, wait in line, turn around, come back. It doesn't really enable us to grab many stops that aren't already on the schedule. And so the plus side with having a transfer station in town would be that we can unload our bulk trucks in town. They're still in town. They're not taking the 2 or sometimes 3 hour turnaround time going to the landfill and back. So we'll have more time to pick up material that isn't necessarily on the schedule. And that is just, it's one more thing that's going to go a long way in us trying to keep the city beautiful, keep our swales and stuff garbage free as much as possible. You know, we're occasionally going to miss things. You know, it happens. If it's not called in ahead of time, we're kind of going as we see them. And the current process is, if it's, let's say it's on Biscayne, and that's a Thursday pickup, and they could put it out.
Keep going. I'm playing in the background. You know that. I was trying to get it to work, but
they could put their bulk pickup out on a Friday, right?
Yep.
And that's the day after their collection. So they don't call it in. We come around next Thursday. Our driver will see it, call it back to the office, and the office will get them on the schedule for the next week. Because again, we've got hundreds of pickups, you know, on any given day. We could have 100, we could have 120. I mean, it fluctuates. So now what you're talking about is, by the time we finally are able to get that picked up, because we've got it on the schedule now, it's been out there for almost 3 weeks. And the perception is, well, solid waste is just not picking up our bulk. It's been out here for a month and they're not doing anything about it. And unfortunately, that's the process we have. Now, if we're able to, say, pick our bulk stuff up and bring it back in town, we have more time to pick up around town. that bulk pickup doesn't necessarily have to sit out there for 3 weeks. We can pick it up as we see it.
Right.
So that will be a big help there. Obviously, the fuel cost of not having to drive to Sarasota and back several times a day will also help. Having everything in town, it's a time saver, it's a money saver, and it's another way that, you know, Frank and Solid Waste are doing their best to help the taxpayers.
Well, and what does that matter? I mean, and I asked this to you in comparison to waste management.
Mm-hmm.
Waste management doesn't have a recycle program. We gear and kind of take pride in our community as being more green. We try to keep everything uniform. We try to keep everything cleaned up. They're working on a tree ordinance. I know that that's to keep us more green. We have waterways that other people don't have. Imagine trash lined up all over our canals. Well, factors that are involved in keeping a city clean, like ours, keeping our waterways clean and water flowing. Okay. One, that's our drinking water. I know that's not public works, but public works help keep they keep the canals moving.
Right.
You know, you guys do work hand in hand with keeping everything moving forward. And
right.
and it's funny the combination of the two, and we're just talking to now because you do work with other parts of the city too, in communication and partnerships. And I say partnerships, you guys are partners in the city. You're all working together to make things work right. And everybody's kind of giving input on certain things at certain times.
Right.
But when it comes down to the function of public works, we talk a lot about the recycle side. We talk about the importance of it. In comparison, though, if you're concerned, if you're a concerned citizen and you're concerned about just a landfill, just landfill alone, what's the tonnage that we keep out of landfill in NorthPort?
That we keep out of the landfill?
Yeah, because we recycle.
I mean, we're talking, I believe it's like 7,000 plus tons a year recycling.
7,000 tons of trash.
Yeah.
I mean, that's perspective.
Right.
And if every city did it, the mountains of wonderful, the wonderful mountains of South Florida, which are really landfills. That's our mountain, because we're not we're not heavy in mountains down here. We don't have the mountain ranges, but it's ironic that you can see the mountains of Florida and see where the mounds of trash were.
Right.
But think if every city, absolutely, if every waste management style company that's out there, I'm not picking on them directly, but they're not by themselves. There's others. There's other cities that 7,000 tons of trash are going to our landfills and not being recycled.
Right.
And not saving taxpayers money. And I think it's a hot topic for me because the person that I was engaging with was talking about how much money they're going to save if the park people get to go into the county. Well, there's something to be said about going into the county at multi-levels. And I'm just talking about the trash side of things, because educated as they may be on their pursuit, are they being actually accurate when they say they're going to save money in the end? Because I don't know that they're looking what's going to happen with waste management and their contract and what the fees are going to be, because I don't believe in this market right now that waste management is getting a discount for taking trash to landfill.
Right.
Because we don't get a discount.
No, the landfill fees, the tipping fees, they are what they are. And, you know, Sarasota County, the landfill there, they've got the business on lockdown. So it is, I mean, what they want to set the fees, they can set them where they want. And what are our options? We're not going to not take the garbage to the landfill. We can't just let it sit. So the tipping fees are going to be what they're going to be. And they know people are going to pay them because they got to dump somewhere. Again, the greatest way that we can affect that cost is by recycling as much as possible. You know, if you've got, let's say you've got a household where you go through 3 cases of water a week, or, you know, maybe 3 or 4 a month. If you were tossing all those water bottles into the garbage, that's money we could be saving. We could be recycling those things, you know, pasta jars, glass jars, let's see, cardboard boxes. There are some people who live on Amazon, and I think over the last few years that's become a major thing because of COVID. Is people staying home, people ordering out, people having things delivered to them. I mean, if you're just tossing the boxes in the garbage, you're not doing anybody any kind of service. This material that can be recycled. And if you look at our Facebook page from the month of November, it was exhausting. I had probably a bajillion facts that I went through, recycling facts, to come up with a daily recycling fact every day, actually, I was going to say every work day, but every day of the month, except for Thanksgiving. There are a lot of good things that recycling cardboard does. There are a lot of good things that recycling plastic bottles and glass jars and things like that. Glass jars will last, I forget the number, it's staggering, but we actually don't know the exact date that a glass jar will no longer be around if you toss it in the dirt and just leave it. If you put it in a landfill, that glass jar will be around before our children's 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 children die. You know, and that just feels like it's a waste to just toss that in the garbage and not find a way to reuse it.
Well, technology, let's talk here a little bit, because back in the day, we didn't have technology that we have today. And our technology, well, some cities can sit back and say, but there's no gain in this. There is if you do it the right way. If you don't do it the right way, there's a lot of factors that go into recycling and having a successful recycling program. And we've talked about that on the show, and I don't necessarily want to get into describing that again, because truthfully, you can go back and look at most of our shows. We're talking about all these things happening. We're talking about what is the benefit to the consumer if they actually utilize the recycle bins the right way. Is it saves you tax dollars.
Correct.
And if we're talking now about a time frame where we just had an economic change with the stock market. Right. One of our customers said, I could have bought this house with cash last week, but now I just lost it all. So they're heavily invested. Things happen in the stock market, and it will bounce back. Sometime it's going to come back. Okay. Right. And at least we hope so. But think about the effort that goes into the program that we put into play as a public works department, with the support of commissioners, with the vision of Frank, okay, and then gaining the trust into the commission and letting them know these things are not just possible, but we can actually save money along the way and cut costs and not cut service.
Right.
Go ahead.
Right. So, I mean, that was the biggest thing, I think, this last go round, because Frank has been trying, to the best of my knowledge, for about 10 years to get the solid waste transfer station.
Yep.
And a lot of it was proving not just the need for it, but what it could do for the city. And so the last time that he didn't get it, a handful of years ago, he said, well, then let's at least get this recycling center done. And so they got the recycling center done. And all he's done with that over the last 2.5 years is show how much money could be saved. So they spent, I believe it was $300,000 to get the facility ready to be used as a recycling facility, get the equipment in line. In 2 years, they've more than keeping the trucks in town. When you're talking about, finishing net positive for the year for our recycling, instead of paying however many dollars a ton to dump it, we're getting paid per ton to recycle it and recycle it well. And, our commissioners and I've witnessed firsthand the conversations with Frank and a couple of the commissioners that said, like, the recycling center proved itself. Let's talk about the solid waste transfer station. And it was the same when we had the yard waste transfer station that we opened up last summer. And the amount of money that could be saved, instead of paying $34 a ton for our yard waste at the landfill, we're paying $14 a ton, taking it down to Synagro. And we're keeping our yard waste trucks in town, and we're saving money that way because we're loading up a trailer and we're taking one trailer down to Charlotte County instead of all of our yard waste trucks making the journey to Sarasota County. And again, when we were opening up there, I witnessed the conversation again firsthand, the commissioners seeing, these ideas work. And it's not about the cost involved, but the savings involved. And so, yes, there's an upfront cost, but in the long term, how much is this going to save us annually to operate this way, to keep everything in town and keep our trucks from driving up to Sarasota and back? We have a lot of solid waste trucks. And for those trucks to make that journey to Sarasota County and back several times a day, it costs a lot in fuel. And aside from that, we're talking about being greener. That leaves a very large carbon footprint. And we're able to cut down on that by keeping the trucks in town.
So, and I know we've thrown this number out before, but I'm going to say it again. And the viewers that are watching on Facebook or YouTube, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Please share the video, because the more this gets out, the better it is. If you're listening on WKDW 97.5 FM, I really appreciate you listening in. I know my audience level is about 16,000 on the internet now, and we're gaining. It's almost double what it was a few years back. People are grabbing a hold of information at all kinds of different levels now. COVID has changed a lot of those things. The social media is the way to go in Northport. Get on their Facebook page and you can keep updated on things. Look at the website. You can check out the website and find out what's happening within all departments, let alone what recycling is all about and what you should be recycling. You can find all those things out. If people had questions,
okay,
who do they contact?
If they have questions regarding recycling or just anything in general?
Recycling. Let's go with the recycling, and then public works in general.
So, I mean, recycling, if you have questions, is this recyclable? Is it not? We've got, if you go to our YouTube channel, City of Northport on YouTube, we've got several videos. I'd say probably a dozen or so videos, each pertaining to Blue Week or Tan Week, just individual random things you wouldn't think about. Like the one we were shooting, Frank had solo cups, and I learned while we were shooting that there are certain red solo cups that you can't recycle because they are a styrofoam-based plastic and not just a straight-up plastic. So those are actually not recyclable. There are things you wouldn't think of. One of the things we get asked about all the time, all of the newcomers days that I've been to, and we've got another one coming up in a couple of weeks here, February 5th, is pizza boxes. And we actually did a video on those as well, also on the city's YouTube channel. But pizza boxes, if it's got grease, it's not recyclable. If it does, you can break off the piece that's not greasy and recycle that and toss the rest. But things like that, if you have questions, you can call Public Works customer service. You can email Public Works customer service. You can reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Nextdoor. Again, YouTube. You can comment on the videos there if you've got questions. I mean, we've got a pretty heavy social media presence, and we try to monitor the messages there as much as possible. And if the ladies at customer service aren't able to answer a question for you, they are not shy about passing the question along to me or Frank and seeing if we can help out. And, usually we can find an answer for you pretty quick. If it's something that we're not sure about, we are not shy about reaching out to our recycling partner, SSR, and getting answers from them. I mean, there have been a few times where we just weren't quite sure. One that came up around the holidays was these Amazon envelopes that say all over it, recycle me, recycle me. And, Frank had noticed one was torn, and inside there was a foamy looking thing. And so he sent them a email and showed them a picture and asked. And it turns out it's not recyclable because the glue itself contaminates the material. And so this thing says, recycle me all over it, when in fact it was not recyclable. So if you've got questions like that, don't hesitate to ask. Social media, email us, give us a call. And if we don't have the answer, we will work to find it as quick as we can.
Well, and I'm going to say something, because in doing the show and having conversations with people, everybody says listen, we did an interview with the theater at NorthPort on Friday. They've got some shows coming up, fantastic shows coming up. And one of the things people say is there's nothing to do in NorthPort. And I don't hear a lot of people pounding their chest. We have a beautiful town. We have a wonderful place to live. What a place to call home. We're safe, sound, and secure in most cases. Like any town, we have our blips and bleeps. And the one thing I wanted to point out is that I didn't know anything about recycling until I started doing this show. And the more I do the show with Billy and Frank and the rest of the crew, like other topics, we've got CARE that's on. We've got the city commissioners that are on. All of these topics, if you absolutely just start paying attention, there's no reason that you can't get excited about some things that are going on within your own town. And then when you hear people pick at NorthPort, that's because they don't know anything about NorthPort. They don't know the reason. They don't know what's happening in NorthPort. They don't understand that their city is jealous of what we're doing with recycling. And I can't think, and I'm going to throw this at you again real quick, but name me one city within 40 miles of us that has our recycling program.
I don't think there is one. That's my knowledge.
All right, so that to me, I get chills when I talk about it. And we're talking about recycling. People, what is our percentage of NorthPort people that actually recycle, and how much could we gain if everybody did it?
I'm hard pressed to find an exact percentage, but I know we're kind of just scratching the surface. When we talk about, we're talking hundreds of thousands of tonnage, maybe not hundreds of thousands. We have a lot of garbage ton. It far outweighs what we're getting recycling. And I feel like that is somewhere that we certainly can do better. Frank and I talk about it from time to time, and it's the same with the bulk pickups and things like that. Is we do our best to educate people, and at some point, people just have to care enough to take the initiative to do it themselves.
Well, what's the goal? Are you guys looking at a 50% growth in recycling?
I mean, we've had a fairly steady growth. I think it's been probably 5 to 10% every year. And I mean, ideally we could get, if we could even get 20, 30% of the city recycling to their maximum capability, there's a lot of good we can do.
and a lot of
sure.
money we could save.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
a lot of cash you can save on the tax dollar side.
Correct. So again, and this is something we've mentioned several times before on the show, is the tipping fee is going to be what it is. And if we can help offset that by maximizing the kickback we get for recycling, our fee went up in the past year, but I feel like it could have gone up by more than it did if we didn't have the success that we did recycling and continue to have recycling. We've actually been, as far as I know, thinking back to October, we have been positive every month in this fiscal year. Whereas last year, when I joined in March, we had a couple months where we were in the red for, a couple months as far as material goes. And then it kind of ticked up as the summer went on and closed out the year in September strong. So I think if we can continue that trend that we had last year through the spring and summer, the year, because we're starting at a better point at the fiscal year, it has the possibility to be a very, very strong year for us recycling wise. And I feel like if we could get the percentage of tons closer, it's a big leap from what we get recycling to what we bring for trash. But if we could get even just a little bit closer, that's a little more money we can save for the residents.
Well, and I always enjoy having you on. I know we talk a lot about recycling. I know we talk a lot about getting information out and what's going on. I think the biggest thing that people need to understand is the more proficient that we get at recycling, the more that you're willing to talk and thump your chest about recycling. I do. I actually, there's pride in where we live because we can actually thump our chest and tell people, look at what we have that no one else around us has. And they really want it. They actually want it. If you actually sat down with commissioners and looked at the cost savings, they really want that program. And they want to be able to listen. You got to love commissioners. You got to love politics. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. Most of them are going to spend that money. They're going to figure out a way to spend the money. Okay? But when you're talking about saving money, it's odd. It is really odd to come into a waste management, public works, city-run situation, and you're actually talking about making money from trash, where other people in our community go there and go, oh, the police department, they're making money. Well, not necessarily. That's not necessarily true either, okay? Because there's a lot of things that go into what they're talking about when they make money, all right? You guys are actually getting money back from trash.
Right.
We're unique. That's prideful. That's chump thumping information if you're out there talking about any other town. If you're talking to people who are going green, they will love the fact that we're going green in this fashion. 7,000 tons. Think about it. Use that in a conversation with your neighbor because you started using the recycle bins the right way. 7,000 tons don't go in the landfill.
Absolutely.
That's big information. It's big, and I'm excited about it. And I hope I didn't trump your excitement because I know you're excited about it. I know you guys. Listen, I love the town. I love what we're doing. Go ahead.
Right. When people come to the newcomers days and stuff like that, especially now having a little more time under my belt, there's nothing I would rather talk to these people about than the success we're having recycling and things that, well, you can do this, you can do that. If you're unsure about this, sure, let me answer the question for you. Let me do my best. And if I don't have the answer for you, I'll take down your information. I will find the answer and I will come back to you with that information.
Absolutely. Well, listen, it's the end of the show and I got to get off the air or they're going to get me. But John Rawlings with Billy Carlson at the Public Works in Northport. John Rawlings with WKDW saying thanks, have a great day. And you all behave yourself and have a good time. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye now.
See you later, guys.